If atheism can justify right or wrong, if atheism can justify ethics, values, purpose, or even truth having a value, because science, according to Nietzsche, was a carcass of Christianity, right? And science itself, which is supposed to be, according to the new atheist, a pursuit of truth, truth itself has no value if atheism is true, and truth can only be justified from an Islamic perspective.
Subboor says, truth can only be justified from an Islamic perspective. Subboor also said, if science contradicts Islam, we trust Islam because science is changing. Subboor also admits that he is looking at the world through lenses. How is that not blind faith?
Fundamentally, this is what I want you to understand. In this conversation, there are two people who are not actually talking on the same level. There is a Muslim who is looking at the world through lenses, green lenses, and he's looking at the world as green. And there is a non-Muslim who is looking at the world through red lenses. So what's happening in the conversation is the Muslim is saying, this is green, this is green, this is green. The non-Muslim is saying, this is red, this is red, this is red. Why is that? The reason is, this is the case is because the Muslim is looking at the world through the lenses of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. He believes that this man called Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the final messenger of God, therefore whatever he says is true. When the non-Muslim doesn't believe that. He maybe believes in God, maybe doesn't believe in God, maybe he's a Christian, a Jew, a Lady Gaga, whatever. There are two people talking from a completely different perspective.
Subboor is teaching students they should apply their biases when investigating truth. He puts in the board controversial questions related to Islam and claims the questions themselves are not important. What matters is the underlying worldview. The dogmatic outlook behind these questions is what really matters. In other words, Subboor advised students not to be academics, but instead be blind cultists. He advised students to trust superstition over reason.
If you try and use your logic and your reasoning to try and give him an answer, then he can try and change the question and ask you in a different way.
Yeah, that is called academic investigation, Subboor. So you are against universities, in other words. So according to Subboor, the evidence behind a scientific theory are secondary. What matters the most is the underlying worldview. For example, evolution contradicts the Genesis story in Islam. So evolution is by default not true.
Okay, so firstly, it's always good to start off with a sort of reminder about why we're doing what we're actually doing. So we as Muslims, it's our duty to obviously convey the message of Islam, right? So Islam is something which every Muslim should seek to advance. They should seek to advance it through their behavior, regardless of how much limited knowledge they have. We as Muslims believe that Islam is the only route of happiness. It's the only thing that will make a human being whole, right? Make a human being complete. You know, Allah says in the Quran, indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. So we believe as Muslims that, you know, it's our duty to convey Islam.
Subboor here admits that he's using philosophy and science not for truth, but for dawah. In other words, his outlook, his purpose is not seeking truth, is promoting Islam. My friend, it's okay to love Islam and to want to promote Islam, but you belong in a church, not in a university. You are not dealing with truth, you are dealing with proselytizing. You are dealing with procedualizing. Procedualizing. Sorry, I cannot say this word. What you get what I mean. Okay, we have Mormons knocking doors because they want to save people. That doesn't mean that we will put Mormons in universities to teach students about evolution.
The reason is because science has actually become in a sort has become into a sort of religion. So science is obviously a beautiful way of trying to find out how the world works. It's an attempt to work out how the world works. Scientism is something very distinct. It's something which is using the garb of science, using the lab coat of science, using the language of science, using the figures of science, but it is something wholly different.
Suboor is making polemics against science because he feels certain science is undermining Islam. But is that the way to truth? Scientists try to eliminate their personal biases, the human factor, when conducting science. The scientific method should be impartial in order to be successful. So Suboor, who does the opposite, he is unscientific. His method for truth is unscientific. But does science lead to truth?
He was not able to provide that.
So tell me this, are you a scientific realist or an instrumentalist?
How are you defining evidence?
I'm not defining evidence. I'm asking a question. Are you a scientific
realist? You might be evasive about
wait,
that,
hang on.
I want to press you on.
Wait, hang on. Are you a scientific realist or a scientific instrumentalist?
I don't know. Don't care.
Okay, wait,
How
hang
do
on
you
a second.
define evidence?
No, wait, hang on. I'll tell you why that matters, and it bears on the evidence.
I want to know.
I'm going to answer
how
that.
you define
I'm
evidence.
going to answer that. I'm going to answer that. The reason
I was very explicit and correct.
Wait
so
1 second.
He says I'm wrong, so he's going to have to give me the correction. What is the actual definition?
Sure.
How are you defining evidence?
Sure. It depends on whether you are a scientific realist or a scientific instrumentalist.
Instrumentalism in the philosophy of science is the view that the value of scientific concepts and theories is determined not by whether they are literally true or correspond to reality, in some sense, but by the extent to which they help to make accurate empirical predictions or to resolve conceptual problems. Scientific realism holds that scientific theories are approximations of universal truths about reality. I, Socrates' son, I am a scientific realist. I believe that scientific theories are approximations of universal truths about reality. Suboor Ahmed obviously is an instrumentalist.
How do you define evidence?
So let me explain. If you're a scientific realist, then that would mean...
How do you define evidence?
Aron, 1 second. If you're scientific...
Is this a difficult question?
Wait, Aron, relax. If you're a scientific realist, then that basically means that evidence for you is the evidence from science. Whatever you observe, whatever you see, whatever theories come up with, you believe that the unobservable world is the way that science is actually describing. However, if you're a scientific instrumentalist, then you believe in the observable claims, but you don't believe in the unobservable claims.
No, scientific realist means that the belief that science corresponds to truth. Scientific instrumentalist believes that science doesn't deal with truth, just instrumental, it's got instrumental value. Now, what you are referring here is effective reasoning. Yes, we should apply effective reasoning. We cannot reason with unknown things. We believe stuff when we've got good reasons to do so, not believe everything until it's disproven, Suboor. So another admission of Suboor that proves he's a blind cultist. He says that he don't trust effective reasoning. Okay, open the dictionary definition, you are a blind cultist.
This is also known as constructive empiricism. So when it comes to evidence, it matters whether you're a realist or constructive empiricist. Now tell me, as a philosopher of science, you're doing PhD, right, or something like that.
How do you?
Tell me this, right?
No, not in philosophy of science.
Okay.
No, so you'll know more than me.
Right. So look,
how do you define it?
If I'm a scientific instrumentalist, then evidence for me means something different for a scientific realist. Now Aron says, I don't know. I don't think you know the difference between the two, to be honest.
No, I don't.
No, if you don't,
because I don't.
Relax, he can speak for himself.
Don't accept me to...
Relax, he can speak for himself. So, if you're a scientific realist and you're a scientific instrumentalist, evidence is going to mean two different things for you. That's what I'm saying.
I don't understand this argument at all.
I know you don't. I know you don't.
asked you how
That's
you
what I'm trying to
define
educate you.
evidence. I did not get an answer.
I did give you the answer. The answer was, it depends whether you're an instrumentalist or a realist.
How do you?
How
do you define evidence?
Sure. Okay. So the way I define evidence is based upon my view, and the view that I hold. The view that I hold is that of constructive empiricism, and it has a subset view called selectionism. So I believe in the view of selectionism. Now, selectionism basically says this: we believe the claims about observables that scientists make, but claims about unobservables we do not accept.
What Suboor means is that he doesn't believe that science leads to truth. Isn't that what you say? What you mean? Okay, so he's using philosophical definitions, and he thinks that everybody should immediately understand what he means. He's using sophistry, in other words. What he's trying to say is that he doesn't believe that science leads to truth. It just leads to instrumentalism. Science doesn't lead to truth, it just leads to instrumentally useful theories.
We are agnostic about them. Now, this view of selectionism, this was first proposed by Bas van Frassen, he's a philosopher of science, and this view was then developed by Brad Ray and others. And what this view basically says is this: if you look at science, there are some constraints in science which stop it from achieving truth, which fall short of it achieving truth. He can speak for himself. I'm speaking to him. I'm not speaking to you. I'm only, look, one second. I am not sharing my view. I'm sharing the view of philosophers of science. Let me explain that. You can challenge that. Look, I'm here to talk. Look, to be honest, I'm here to talk to Aron, not you.
Yeah, well, we can all talk whenever we feel.
That's fine.
When we had our debate.
That's fine. One second. I'm answering your question. One second. I'm answering your question. Aron,
your entire tactic throughout that debate was to redefine.
I'm answering your question
incorrectly.
Aaron,
so
but
that's what you're doing now.
Aaron, I'm answering your question. Let me complete your question. Your question is this:
Darwinism as something that never was.
Wait, hang on. Don't try and change the topic. We can go to that. Okay. So when it comes to selectionism, the reason why selectionists believe that science doesn't achieve truth but only achieves instrumentally useful theories.
What is truth?
Okay, so Ahmed Suboor redefines what is true. He's wrong. His definition of truth is wrong. I will explain later which is the true definition of truth, which corresponds to reality. Scientific realism is true. Scientific instrumentalism is not true. So, Suboor believes in scientific instrumentalism, which is not true. I will explain later why that is. And he believes in scientific instrumentalism not because it's intellectually appealing, but because he wants to protect Islam. That's the reason. In the outlook, not truth, his outlook is Islamic apologetics. And that is the problem with his reasoning. He doesn't seek for truth, he seeks to promote Islam.
Well, truth is, it depends how you define it because there's different definitions.
But
yes,
so that's why
you could have. Hang on. One second.
Exactly.
Wait.
So he's supporting my position that the truth is what the facts are.
The guy said, truth is what corresponds to reality. Yes, that's the true definition of truth. What is Suboor's definition of truth? Spoilers alert is something absolute that doesn't change. That is not the true definition of truth. In other words, you try to squeeze reality to what you want to say instead of testing your claim to reality. So this guy, instead of testing his claim to reality to see if it's true, he tries to squeeze reality to what he believes. So he wants to squeeze the world to his logic instead of testing his logic to reality. And that is the biased, dogmatic outlook of things. Totally biased. You make your logic and you squeeze the world to your logic. Okay, in that sense, I can make everything true, my friend. Everybody can do that, to squeeze the world to his logic. The point is to test your logic to the world.
The question, let me answer it.
Science can achieve facts.
No,
right?
so, Aaron, listen for a second. I'm answering your question you asked me and you keep interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you. So here's the thing. You asked about why I believe so selectionism. Here's why I believe in selectionism. The problem of unconceived alternatives.
Blah, blah, blah. What is true? Let's see how you define truth.
The truth is what the facts are. Science can achieve things that are true. Science can determine what is true.
I don't think you listened to anything I said.
You said that science doesn't lead to truth because there is a philosophical theory of instrumentalism. That is what you said. Because there is a theory of instrumentalism, scientific instrumentalism, you presuppose this theory is correct and science doesn't lead to truth. You are wrong. Let me explain why. You claim that God defines truth and not what works in a given environment. Let's test that. Let's say God came to earth and said, an elephant can fit through a mouse hole. Is he true? According to you, if God says an elephant can fit through a mouse hole, that necessarily makes it true. Yeah, but imagine a world in which we test the elephant, he doesn't fit to the mouse hole, but it's still true. This world would have been insane. You destroy all reasoning, okay? I could have said anything. 1 + 1 = 5. It's true. 1 meter, I can jump 1 meter and go to the moon. It's true. Because God said it. Okay, can you imagine this world? It will be an insane world, a lunatic world. Okay, but in reality, the environment defines what's true. So God, in order to be true, what he needs to do? He needs to do some kind of magic, make the elephant smaller or make the mouse hole larger in order to what he says to be true. So what is the factor that defines truth? The environment. What mirrors accurately the environment? So the true definition of truth is what corresponds with reality. That is true. Not something absolute that doesn't change. And let's test that. Let's take something absolute that doesn't change. Different environments might have different realities. So something that corresponds in one environment, it doesn't necessarily correspond to another. My Russian doll example. Let me make this example. Imagine reality is like a Russian doll. The first doll is the ultimate reality, the underlying reality. Then we have the second doll, which is reality number 1. Then the third doll, which is reality number 2. Then the fourth doll, which is reality number 3. Okay. The rules that apply to reality number 1 doesn't necessarily apply to the ultimate reality. So truth is what corresponds inside each doll, not what corresponds to the ultimate reality. That is what we humans define as truth. And that is the real ontological meaning of truth, because that is what we mean when saying truth. When I say an elephant can fit through a mouse hole, truth corresponds to the environment. That is what we humans call as true, and that is the true ontological definition of truth. Because what is ontology? Is mind concepts that correspond to what we mean. That is ontology. Ontology doesn't necessarily require a God. That is what theists cannot grasp. Ontology is what we mean. It just needs consciousness. Let me give you an example to understand what I mean. Let's say jealousy. Let's see the dictionary definition of jealousy. Jealousy is the feeling of anger or bitterness which someone has when they think that another person is trying to take a lover, a friend, or a possession away from them. Okay, how we know that is the true definition of jealousy? Maybe jealousy means an intense feeling of deep affection. Maybe that is what jealousy means. If there is a God. That is your argument, my friend. You claim that God defines what's true. No, what's true is relating mental concepts with their meaning, with their true meaning that corresponds to reality. And ontological concepts, they take their objectivity from truth, from the environment and what we mean with these ontological concepts, not what God says they mean. God can be wrong, in other words. If God says that jealousy means a deep affection, he's wrong. Okay, can you understand what I'm saying? Ontology underlines God. God can be wrong if he says wrong things. Okay, and this is what ancient Greeks said on nomos, the law, that even gods obey. Okay, and I again happen my ideas to meet with the ancient Greeks. Maybe because I'm Greek and I have the philosophy in my blood. Okay, ancient Greeks said on nomos that even gods obey the law. They could understand that there is something that is irrespective of consciousness that defines truth, that even gods obey. Now, let's see how you define truth.
So your question is, what is Darwinian evolution and what is a fact?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I didn't interrupt you when you made
Hold on. What is a fact?
I would say a proposition that corresponds to reality.
I don't like proposition. I would like.
Aron, can I respond to you? Look, he's not going to help you. He's not going to help you. He's definitely not going to help you. All right? Let me just speak to you. So you're saying the fact. What is a fact?
What is a fact?
Now,
Now, are we talking in science?
Aron, I'm not going to interrupt you.
Are we talking in science?
Can you let me speak?
Seems there's a lot of ego at play here,
Are
isn't
we
it?
talking about science?
Seems that we're not
Let me
interested
complete
in
my
actual
sentence
discussion,
first.
isn't it?
So he's not going to answer. Okay.
Okay. When we're speaking about fact, the first thing which I want to speak about is what philosophers define fact as, and then we're going to get to science. Okay? So, one of the first problems in the philosophy of science, in fact, there's a paper which is called "Is the First Problem in Philosophy What is a Fact?" That they basically claim it is, and there's a whole bunch of different definitions. However, there is a generally agreed upon definition in science. Now, my first video, which you responded to, which I made on Darwin Day, around that period, right, in 2016, I basically said right at the beginning, Darwinian evolution, if it's defined as a fact from a philosophy point of view, that fact is something which you can define as absolute, doesn't change, and cannot be changed because of future observations, then it's not a fact. However, in the same video, I said if you say a fact is a generally prevailing theory in science, is a theory which is described by the majority, or it is a valid. Wait, hang on, 1 second. One second, Aron.
So evolution is not true if fact is something absolute that doesn't change. That's not a true definition of what is a fact. Or at the very least, is an incomplete definition. Fact is what corresponds to reality. That is a fact.
I don't agree with you.
Okay, I'll explain why.
The second one is wrong.
Wait, hang on.
I don't know about second one, I'm saying philosophically.
No. Why I said it was this. Look. Too many things going on. But let me just explain. In philosophy, there is a massive discussion about what is a fact. So therefore, whenever you speak about a fact, you need to define what you're speaking about. So in that paper, which is published by Cambridge University, it speaks about what is a fact. And what it goes on to say is this: whenever you speak about a fact in a particular context, you need to define it clearly, then speak about it in a different context. A fact may mean something else.
So when you say evolution is not a fact, and you deceive your viewers, Muslims that believe you in fact have a different meaning of what is fact. That is what you admitted now, Suboor. If a fact is something absolute that doesn't change, nothing is a fact. Because absolute is just one thing in this universe. Even if there is an absolute, maybe there aren't any absolutes in this universe. So even if there is an absolute, it's one thing. So nothing is a fact in this definition. Something absolute that doesn't change. The only fact is the initial essence. All the rest are not facts, are opinions. So when you say that evolution is not a fact, you deceive your viewers. Because you don't define what you mean by a fact.
So in the beginning of my video, I said this is the way I am defining a fact for the purposes of this discussion. And I said, and that's the definition I used, which I'm allowed to do.
Which one?
Which I said was something absolute, something that's not going to change, and something that can't be revised. Right?
Something absolute, something that's not going to change, and something that cannot be revised. That is a fact, according to you. In this definition, nothing is a fact, except the initial essence. So obviously, evolution won't be a fact in this definition. You little explorer, you little Einstein. Obviously, the earth is round is not a fact, according to this definition. Okay, nothing is a fact. Gravity is not a fact, according to this definition. You being a person is not a fact, according to this definition. Nothing is a fact, according to this definition. So, you make a definition that includes everything, okay, and you say evolution is not a fact.
We're going to put that challenge out there, the challenge of nihilism, the challenge of existentialism to the atheists, and we're going to say, bring it on, come into the den and explain to us what exactly do you have to offer. If atheism can justify right or wrong, if atheism can justify ethics, values, purpose, or even truth.
And now, in the spirit of my Greek ancestors, in order to honor them, I will sing a Greek song for my Greek ancestors. I'm a man of constant sorrow. I get nervous all my life. I'm bid farewell to old Kentucky, place where I was born and raised. Ow! Was born and raised. Ow! I am born a man of constant sorrow. I see blood. For 6 years I've been in trouble. Pleasure here on earth I found. For in this world I'm born and rubble. I have no friends to help me now. He's got no friends to help him now. Όπα, πάμε. Όπα. Πάμε. It's very well, my old true lover. Never have expect to see you again. Όπα. Γύρος. Πίτα γύρος. To ride. No, the river has died. For that train. On that train. I'm a man of constant sorrow. Όπα, πάμε. You can bury me in some deep valley for many years when I'm ailing. Then you may learn to love another while I'm sleeping in my grave. Well, he is sleeping in his grave. Τσατσίκι, σουφλάκι, πίτα γύρος, όπα, let's go. Maybe my friend, I'm just a stranger, my face will never see no more. But there is one that is given me you golden soul.